Hi, welcome to part 2 of my falling in love all over again with the Apple II Plus. Yeah, I've been digging through the archives here, finding memorabilia, and just kind of taking a gander at the technology and trying to remember what it's all about. And it takes me back. So I'm listening to some of the older music I've got while I've got it going on. This is probably going to create some kind of a copyright infringement in YouTube, but the music's pretty old, so maybe it won't. I don't know. But I do like crash test dummies. Times like this makes me feel better. It's funny, you know, when you dig through the archives, sometimes you find something that you didn't pay much attention to in the past. And what I found is actually the Apple product catalog from 1980. I didn't even know that I had such a thing. But what's interesting with this is, at the time, they were selling the Apple II, the Apple II Plus, and the Apple III. And this also gave me a retail price list. So I gave you some numbers before that, you know, maybe we're right, maybe we're wrong on part 1, but let's just review. I'll correct them. So here it says for the Apple II Plus with 16 KB of RAM, the suggested retail price was $1,330. And let's see, accessories. Let's see how much that disk drive was. To accessories, disk 2, the drive, and the interface. So that's basically the card that plugs it in the computer. List price is $645, and that included the DOS 3.3 operating system. So list price was $645. I don't know what I paid, but I'll bet you know what I paid was close to list price. So there's that. Well, let's just take a little look inside, because by today's standards, really, this computer is very simple. It didn't seem simple at the time, but it does now. And I should point out by saying there are 2 expansion cards in this computer that did not come with it originally. These I added, and I have others that I could add if I wanted to, but right now I just have 2 of them in there. But it was delivered, you know, base model didn't have that. The other thing and by the way, the other thing I said in the earlier video is that you could expand the 16 KB to 64. That's true. But as far as the motherboard goes, you could upgrade the motherboard all the way to 48 KB by just adding new memory modules. You know, these little things I'm talking about. You know, basically you bought those chips and plugged them in to the sockets carefully. But then you could take it up to 64 KB by adding a 16K RAM expansion card, which was part of a language card, right? This was an additional capability that you had to go with. This computer happens to have it in there. I don't know if I had that initially or whether this came from another computer that I picked up along the way. This, the Apple II Plus uses a Motorola 6502 processor. That was the architecture. It was an 8-bit processor. I don't remember what the speed was, but it was slow. That much you can depend on. I also want to show you a little more about this TV interface that came with this. I found another piece of the puzzle. So this is kind of how I remember it working now. So there's a 4 connector adapter here that actually plugs in right in here. There's actually 4 pins right there that this would go into. And I don't remember if this had to connect to this video out adapter down here or not. That's possible that also was cabled in there. But then this is a Super Mod 2 channel 33 TV interface unit, either black and white or color. So you would use another RCA cable to basically connect this over by your television. So this was kind of the same interface that early game consoles would use. So, you know, the game is here, this side would be the traditional antenna, coming from wherever, and then this would go to the television, and you could switch between either the computer or the television, right? It was common for these things to appear in homes back at that time. So that's kind of how that connected and how that worked. I also found, so I'm digging through my cards, another expansion card. This does not have a name on it, but the fact that it has a video cable on it tells me this is probably an 80 column card, because you could, with a proper expansion card, you could go from a 40 column of characters to an 80 column of characters. And I'm pretty convinced that's what this card is, an 80 column monitor card. Here's another typical card that people would have in their computers. You know, it wasn't unusual to want to print something, so you would need a printer interface board. Looks something like this that you would stick in one of your sockets. And this, I think, was called a Centronics parallel printer interface that would go to your printer, which was almost always a dot matrix printer back then. And, you know, then you could get some very poor quality print coming out from your computer as well. I say poor quality mostly because of the dot matrix was pretty basic back at that time. And there wasn't very much in the way of resolution or anything, but it worked. It was loud, but it worked. So it wasn't all bad. A couple more goodies I found. Speaking of the dot matrix, well, I don't have the printer anymore. I still have the manual for the Epson MX70 printer I had. Most people don't know there was a cheaper model than the MX80. I went with the MX70 because it cost less money, probably $100 less. And I think the big difference was the fact that the MX70 had a 5x7 dot character size, where the MX80 was a little more dots, probably 5x8. But I think it cost me, or saved me $100 by going with the MX70. You know, it worked perfectly fine. I also found the original DOS 3.3 discs. I got the System Master and what they call Basics, and I have a copy of the Master, all in the original Apple floppy diskettes. There you go, 5 1/4 inch floppy diskette. That's a floppy, because it's floppy. You can see this has been in the drive many times just by all the scuffs on here. And hopefully these are still readable, because on the next video, I'm going to try to have this diskette reader working, and maybe we can run some software. That'll be exciting. So if you like the video, please give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and we'll produce some more for you. Thank you.